Now our first one, and there's going to be a lot of note-taking in this one, so make sure you've got your journal handy. We're going to write all this down. We're going to take it step by step. So the first is method 1. Method 1 is one we've done before, where you solve as a unit fraction, and then you multiply that. So for example, if we have 2/3 times 15, well, in this method, you turn your fraction, 2/3, into a unit fraction. So a unit fraction, remember, is when you have a numerator of 1. So the unit fraction of 2/3 would just be 1/3. So for now, we're sort of ignoring that 2 as the numerator and replacing it with a 1. And we'll come back to it. So if I rewrite it, it becomes 1/3 times 15. Now using what we've done before, this is from, I believe, 9(3). We take 15 times 1, which becomes 15 all over 3, and then divide that out to get 5, because that line right there, that fraction bar, also tells us to divide. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now we have to go back, since we had an actual numerator of 2, we would now multiply that answer times 2. So 5 times 2 gives us 10. So you should be writing the steps down. You don't necessarily have to write all of the words that I write, but I do want you to write the steps that go with each method so you have an example when you go back and try and solve them on your own. Now the second method is when you multiply the whole thing out and then simplify. So we've got 2/3 times 15. We're doing the same problem. Now instead of turning it into a unit fraction, we're going to multiply it all out. So 2/3 times 15, and we just did that in the last unit, so 15 times 2 is 30, and that all over 3. If you're forgetting how to solve those multiplication problems, please go back and rewatch the video from 9(4). That will tell you how to do this. Okay, so 30 over 3, 30 divided by 3 is what that equals, which equals 10. So did we get the same answer? Yes, we got the same answer as the last one. Now this requires one less step than method 1, because in method 1 you had to convert back to a unit fraction and then multiply again. However, when you get into larger numbers, this is going to be difficult because you have to simplify very large numbers. And 30 and 3 is pretty easy to find the greatest common factor, knowing what to divide them by so you can simplify, but once you get into bigger ones, it's much more challenging, and we'll see that later on in this lesson. Now the third method, and I know this is going to look a little bit confusing, but you're going to see how it's really going to help you out if you have large fractions you're multiplying. So method 3 is when you simplify your number first, then you multiply it out. So pay very close attention to this one, and be sure you're writing down all of the steps as we go. So again, we've got 2/3 times 15. We're going to stick to the same problem, so you can see that you'll always get the same answer no matter which method you choose. So in this method, you multiply first, and then solve and simplify the answer. So 2/3 times 15, we end up multiplying out 2 times 15. So this is how you do it the long way. Now, we look at that number, and I know 15 and 3, if I'm just looking at the 2, the 15, and the 3, 15 and 3 have 3 as a greatest common factor. So if I list out all the factors of 15, all the factors of 3, and that's why we spent time doing that in Unit 8, 3 would be the greatest one they have in common. So I'm going to simplify those first, and this is how I would do that. I would cross out those 2 that I'm simplifying. So to simplify means to divide them. Since I said 3 was my greatest common factor, I would be dividing each of those by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So when I go over here now, it becomes 2 times 5 all over 1, which is 10. So again, I get the same answer, just done a different way. And I know this looks a little bit confusing for this problem, but you're going to see as we do some harder ones how it will help you. So think about it. Did we get the same answer with all 3 methods? Yes. So how are method 1 and method 3 alike? So I'd like you to go back, and I would like you to just write one sentence telling me, look back at method 1, look back at method 3, tell me how they're alike. Look back at method 2 and method 3, how are they alike? So I'm going to be expecting to see a couple of sentences where you actually do some thinking and processing in your head about how these methods are similar. So go ahead, pause this, please, go back and do that now before you move on. So since method 3 is the newest, the most difficult, I guess you could say, or at least for now, until we get to know it a little better. Let's try a few of them together. So let's say we take 3/10 times 5/12. Well, when we combine those together, I'm going to multiply it out. And I'm going to end up with a pretty large number. So 3 times 5 and 10 times 12. That's 1,520ths. That's a pretty big number. So it's going to be a little more difficult to simplify, and it's going to take a lot more steps. So I'm going to try method 3 here. So again, I'm going to rewrite it. Now I look at those numbers I have. I have 3. And again, you're only comparing the numerators to denominators. If, for example, the denominators, 10 and 12, they have common factors, but you can't simplify those. You can only simplify a numerator to a denominator. So if we look at those, we know that 3 and 12 have 3 as a common factor, and 5 and 10 have 5 as a common factor. So we can simplify this quite extensively. So let's see how that's done. If I start with the 5 and 10, well, I cross them out. Now, I said 5 was their greatest common factor. And again, if you don't remember greatest common factor, please go back and watch the video. It was 9-2, or 8-2, I apologize. Video 8-2 that talked about greatest common factor. So go back and find that if you need a refresher. So I divide 5 and 10 both by the greatest common factor, which was 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 was 2. Now I look at my other two. I've replaced now the 5 and 10 with the 1 and the 2 that we just did. Now 3 and 12. Those both had 3 as a common factor. So if I divide 3 by 3, I get 1. 12 by 3, I get 4. Now my next step is this. 1 times 1 over 2 times 4. Now that is easy. 1 times 1 is just 1, and 2 times 4 is 8, so it's already simplified. You've already simplified from the get-go. You don't have to worry about getting a giant number like 15 over 120. Alright, so here are 6 problems. There are a variety of difficulty, and I believe every single one of them needs to be simplified. So what I would like you to do is write these down and try them. If you don't remember how to do it, go back to the part where I showed you step by step. If you come into class and say, I just don't get it, and you haven't gone back and rewatched that step by step, please do that. I'm more than happy to help you, but I want you to put in the effort to try it first. Okay, so go back and solve it. Then I'm going to be looking for your work, because in a second, and I'm going to have you pause it right now, but after you're done with these, I'm going to go over the answers, and I'm not going to tell you how to get them all. I'm just giving you the simplified answer so you can check. But when I want to see, if you come in with 1 through 6 and only the answers written down, I will make you redo them all. It's very important that I see your work, otherwise I'm going to assume you just wrote the answer. So go ahead and pause this. Take as long as you need to write these down and answer them and simplify them. I would really try simplifying first, that method we just did, because it will save you a lot of time and energy at the end. And then come back and I'm going to show you the answers, and you will be able to check and see if you got them right. Okay, so now we're going to look at the answers. So for number 1, the answer you should have got was 20. 2, you should have gotten 14. 3, you should have gotten 7 halves. 4, you should have gotten 1/8. 5, you should have gotten 1 over 42. And 6, you should have gotten 2 over 9. Now, if you did not get those, try and figure out why. What did you do that made it so you didn't get them? Remember, these are simplified as far as you can go. So take a look at those. And then I want you to try just one story problem before you go. So after you've checked your answers and made sure they're all good, try and solve this story problem. In the Fireside Ski Shop, 11/28 of the ski caps have tassels. Of the caps that have tassels, 7/11 of them are blue. So what fraction of the caps in the shop are blue with tassels? And I want your answer to be simplified. So please try and solve that and bring it to class tomorrow, because I'm going to be checking this problem first.